Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Herman Cain, former president of the National Restaurant Association.
Good morning. Thank you for that very warm welcome. I'm delighted to be here. It was Dr. Benjamin E. Mays, who was president of Morehouse College when I was a student there, who used to remind the young men of Morehouse, let it be borne in mind that the tragedy of life does not lie in not reaching your goals. The tragedy lies in having no goals to reach for. We are in a national spending nightmare, and we need a goal to balance the federal budget. It's not going to get done by the committee of 535. The only way it's going to get done is with the right leadership in the White House, where leadership is supposed to begin. I have served on several boards of directors in my 40-year business career, many of whom have used the Lean Six Sigma approach. I know firsthand from experience that it works, and it is a culture that we need to introduce Washington, D.C. to in order to achieve that goal in the future. And then there's one other thing that we need to do. We need to stop rearranging the chairs on the deck of the Titanic and get serious about restructuring entitlement spending. Time permits me to describe my approach to one of the biggest ones that we need to address. Everybody in Washington keeps trying to pretend that this big elephant is not in the room when it's sitting over in the corner, called the Social Security system. The small country of Chile had the same problem that we have with Social Security 30 years ago. The workers had gotten to the point that they had been taxed and taxed and taxed, that they were paying 27% on every dollar earned into a broken retirement system. What Chile did was to introduce an optional personal retirement account component of the Social Security system, where the workers would still contribute to the system that some people were already on, too close to develop their own individual account, but at the same time they were able to put part of their wages into their own personal retirement account system with their name on it. What a novel idea. An account with your name on it. In the first 3 years of that program, 90% of all workers chose the personal retirement account option. And today, Chile has one of the best retirement systems in the world. I believe that with the right leadership in the White House, that we can get our system to make that same conversion if we have a goal to balance the federal budget, and that's a big piece of it that we need to do. And so, Six Sigma is a culture that we need to introduce in Washington, D.C., and I totally support that culture. But we also need a president who will be capable of going to the American people and properly explaining the problem, explaining what we need to do, why we need to do it, and then do it. It might sound like common sense, but then do it. And when I talk to some reporters about that idea, some of them, being the skeptics that they are, will say to me, but how are you going to get that done? That's going to be politically difficult. That's what's wrong with Washington, D.C. We got to get away from being scared because it's politically difficult and do what's right for the United States of America. And the way Herman Cain, as President of the United States, will get it done is that he has and is going to call upon a secret weapon. It's called We the People. And as former Senator Everett Dirksen said, when they feel the heat, they will see the light. Y'all gonna be my heat to help them see the light in Washington, D.C. You be the heat. And to close, we can get this spending under control, folks. But we got to believe that we can do it. We've got to have a leader that believes that we can do it. And I happen to be one of those people that believes that we can do it. Because there's an old saying, if you think you can't, you won't. If you think you dare not, you don't. If you like to reduce the deficit, but think you can't, then chances are you won't. Life's battles don't always go to the fastest, the biggest, or the richest man. But sooner or later, the one who wins is the one who believes he or she can. I believe we can stop this spending nightmare. Thank you very much.
Herman, I'd like to ask Mike George to come back out and accept the pledge from you. Here comes Mike over there.
Mr. George, let's see, I need to lay it down so I don't mess up my signature.
June 18th. Thank you very much, Herman.
Thank you, sir.
Good luck and God bless you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Herman, right over here. That one. Yep.
And the pain. Vote for Cain.
Well, it is good to be here with the Hermanator. And
Thanks, you.
I am one of those talking heads who question whether or not you ought to be on the stage in New Hampshire, and you're making me look pretty stupid, Herman. It's...
Well, I just gave that point about, the one who thinks he can. So it starts out with believing, and as you know from my career, I have done a lot of things against the odds. And one of the reasons that I decided to run for President of the United States against the odds is because I happen to believe more in the American people than I do the establishment. And we're starting to see it in the poll results.
Let me ask you a couple of questions specific to Lean Six Sigma. You have taken some positions on stock ownership in the banks by the United States government. You want to explain what those positions were, because it's got some people wondering, do you think we ought to be in the business of banking?
No, we should not. When TARP was first proposed, I now regret saying that I supported TARP because of the way it was implemented. It was used to pick winners and losers. It was used in too much of a discretionary fashion. I knew that this financial meltdown was serious. I studied it. So we needed to do something drastic. But in retrospect, I never would have supported the idea of TARP because it was abused and used in a discretionary manner, and I don't believe that that was a right use of taxpayer dollars.
You were also catching a little heat over a comment you made about the Second Amendment. I know we got a lot of Second Amendment fans here, and I know
Yes.
you're a strong supporter of it.
Yes.
You want to clarify what that comment was when they asked you whether or not it should be left up to the states? I think you said it should be a state matter.
I strongly support the Second Amendment. And when I said that some things should be left up to the states, for example, if the states want to require background checks, let the states decide that. But I did not in any way mean that the states had a right to restrict access to owning firearms. So that was the misunderstanding.
How about the Federal Reserve? Ought it to be audited?
The Federal Reserve could and should be audited. I have no objection to that. However, the statement that I have made is that's not going to be a lead issue for Herman Cain. That's all I've said. I have this bad habit of being honest with people. So I will not object to an audit of the Federal Reserve. A congressional committee is already in place that can make that happen. And I will not object to that, would not stand in the way of members of Congress who want to audit the Federal Reserve. Go for it.
What was the most difficult part? We're standing between lunch and all these people, so I'm going to give you a good softball to wrap up with.
And they are not serving Godfather's pizza, unfortunately. I got bad news for you.
When you were at Godfather's, when you served on these boards and you were applying Lean Six Sigma,
Yes.
what is the hardest part to make sure that it gets done? From the time you say I'm in to the time you say we've won, what's the hardest part of making sure it works?
In private companies, it really wasn't as hard because if the CEO made it a priority, it got done. In government, it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but it can get done. The hardest part is getting the entire organization to believe that you're serious about it. That's why the leadership has to come from the top. And with my business background, I plan to take my business problem-solving, cost-cutting skills to the White House because I happen to believe that we can run government like a business so that we can get out of some of these crises that we are in.
Herman Cain, great to have you here. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Pleasure.
And thank you. Thank you.